Hi everyone. In these short videos, my goal is to explain the key concepts, highlight the key concepts. So in week 2, we are going to start with supply and demand. And let's start with defining what the demand is. As consumers, our relationship with demand is primarily based on price. As you can see in this chart, this is the demand curve. Demand curve is downward sloping, and what that means is as price goes down, we as an individual or as a society are going to demand that product more. That's called a movement along the demand curve. Vice versa, as for example in this case, as the price goes up from A to B, from $60 to $80, the demand for that product, in this case, its pair of jeans, is going to drop. So that's what we are seeing here. The demand formula is the quantity demanded is an intercept value, A, minus the slope of the demand curve, which is the change in quantity caused by $1 change in price, multiplied by price. The important part here is the negative sign, which means as price goes up, as I mentioned, the quantity goes down, and vice versa. And I also want to note that the dependent variable is quantity demanded, which means the input into the equation is price. Once we determine the price, we are going to get an output of quantity demanded. That's what it means between dependent variable and independent variable. Input, which is price, versus output, what you get, which is the quantity. The higher costs or higher prices will cause customers to buy less. As an example, if the price of beef goes up, we will buy less of it. But we still have to eat. What are we going to do? That's when the concept of substitution comes into play. The economic concept of avoiding the need to buy a thing by making it do with something else. And what that means is if the price of beef goes up, we as a society may tend towards chicken instead. Chicken is a substitute for beef. So as a result, the presence of substitute products plays an important role in a given industry. There is also another concept called income effect. As someone's income grows, the income effect predicts that the people will begin to demand more. The income effect is the resultant change in demand of good or service caused by increase or decrease in the consumer's purchasing power or real income. And when this happens, income grows, the demand goes up. That's for what's called normal goods. We will buy more as a result of our increased income. There are also a group of products called inferior goods. When the income goes up, the demand for those inferior goods go down. An example for that is store-branded items. As incomes grow, there will be less demand for store-branded items and probably more demand towards more expensive name brands. We talked about shift along the curve, which is totally driven by the price increase or decrease on the left side. There is also a shift of the demand curve itself. So the entire curve can shift to left, or in this case here, can shift to right. And we are going to see what causes a curve and an entire curve shift towards left or right. As we mentioned, income increases will cause the demand curve to shift towards right. People will make more money, they tend to buy more stuff. As a result, demand will increase, entire curve will shift towards right. Population increases, there will be more people, which means there will be more demand. As a result, the demand curve will shift right. Products gain popularity either by an effective marketing campaign or, for example, if people become more concerned about climate change, they may demand more electric vehicles. That will cause an entire demand curve to shift right. Price of substitutes, we talked about this. For example, if the price of beef goes up, then the entire demand curve for chicken shifts towards right. So the price change in demand, price change of beef is a movement along the demand curve for the demand for beef, but it's a shift for the demand curve for chicken. The price of complementary goods. Let's define what complementary goods are. Complementary goods are goods whose use are related, an associated pair of goods. As an example, printers and ink cartridges are complementary goods. If the price of printers go down, then the demand curve for ink cartridges will shift towards right. So the demand, if the price goes down for printers, the demand for printers goes up. That's a movement along the curve. And then that's the demand curve for printers. On the ink cartridges side, the entire ink cartridge demand curve will shift to right. Supply. Price just doesn't impact the demand. It also impacts the willingness to produce from producers, from suppliers. As you can see, the supply curve is upward sloping, which means that if prices go up, the more prices go up, then there is more willingness for suppliers to produce more, or there will be more suppliers in that given market, which also increase the quantity. It's probably a combination of both, but regardless, the point is, as price goes up, the quantity that is supplied will increase. The supply curve formula is similar to demand curve formula except for the plus sign. The quantity supplied, QS, is the intercept value when the quantity when the price is zero. That's typically zero. Suppliers won't supply anything and the price is zero. S is the slope of change. When there is $1 change in price, what's the quantity, the change in quantity that's supplied? That's the slope multiplied by price. As I mentioned, the plus sign means if the price increases, the quantity supplied will increase as well. Just like the demand curve, there is also a shift of the supply curve. The supply curve can shift to left, or in this example, the supply curve can shift to right. And let's see what can cause these shifts. Innovation is main one. Technological innovation allows production at a lower cost, and lower cost will increase the quantity that the companies are willing to supply at a given price. Another one is input prices. Related to this, if the cost to produce of a good suddenly drops due to a change in input prices, the companies will be willing to sell more because they are going to, the cost is going to drop, the price is the same. That means the companies will profit more. As a result, since there is a higher profit, the companies are willing to sell more. That's going to shift the supply curve towards right. A supply shock, as an example, if the weather is good, there will be more supply. The produce is going to be more. and the supply curve for any product or produce, I should say, will shift towards right. Now we are seeing supply and demand on the same chart. As you can see, at some point they are going to intersect. We call this equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. At that point, the suppliers are happy they are met, the demand is met as well. So the market determines between the suppliers and the buyers. The market determines what the equilibrium price is and what the equilibrium quantity is. Let's look at it in a calculation. We talked about this. The equation for quantity supplied is intercept plus the slope times price. Quantity demanded is intercept minus slope times price. At the equilibrium, the quantity demanded equals quantity supplied, which means the right side of this equals the right side of this because quantity supplied is equal to quantity demand. So we have this equation. Let's do it as an example. Quantity demanded is 600 million minus 5 million times price. Quantity supplied is 5 million times price. And our job is to find the equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. What we are going to do is we are going to say the demand is going to be equal to the price, and we are going to solve this equation. As a result, price is going to be 60. Then we can find the equilibrium quantity by either having the price in the supply equation or the demand equation. It doesn't matter because at the equilibrium, quantity supplied is quantity demanded. Regardless of which equation you use, you are going to find that the equilibrium quantity is 300 million. And in this equilibrium, everyone will benefit from this. We are going to see a consumer surplus here. What that means is there are all the people here who are willing to pay a higher price than equilibrium price, and all these combined at these quantities is going to cause some type of consumer surplus. Okay, and then producer surplus on the other hand is all these suppliers are willing to supply at these prices, but the prices are set here. As a result, the producers will benefit from this as well. Let's answer these three questions as a wrap-up for week 2. Let's see what happens to equilibrium price and quantity if there is an increase in the number of buyers. Question number 2 is what happens to equilibrium price and quantity if there is an increase in costs. And 3 is what happens to equilibrium price and quantity if there is both a decrease in resource cost and increase in number of buyers. Let's take a look at that. Increase in number of buyers, this will shift the demand curve to right, and it's going to cause an increase in price and quantity. And I encourage you to do this on pen and paper. Do a chart of practically a demand and supply and demand, and I can show that to you here. What we are going to do is we are going to have a demand and supply, demand, supply. This is quantity and price. Let me show this to you. So we are going to have quantity, demand and supply, and what we are going to do is I'm going to do a dashed line for an increase in demand. We are going to have I'm going to do this increase in demand to the dashes. As you can see, what that's causing is it's going to cause an increase in price and increase in quantity. Okay, because the equilibrium is set as a higher price and at a higher quantity. Increasing cost, resources used in production. Increasing cost will decrease the supply because higher cost will make it less feasible for suppliers to produce. This decrease in supply will shift the supply curve to left, and it's going to cause an increase in price and a decrease in quantity. Let's see that in our supply and demand curve as well. Do this all the time. You are going to get practice. So this is the original equation right here, supply and demand, and I'm going to shift the supply curve towards left. Dotted line, you are going to see that the dotted line, at the dotted line, the price is higher, but the quantity is lower. Do it yourself. You are going to do the same. Shift the supply curve towards left. And question number 3 is there is both a decrease in resource cost as well as an increase in number of buyers. The increase in supply and increase in demand will definitely cause the quantity to increase. There's a decrease in resource cost, don't forget that. But the change in price, the increase in demand will shift the price upwards, but the increase in supply will shift the price downwards. And the question is which force is going to win, the demand force or the supply force? And that's determined by the magnitude of the increases of supply and demand. If the magnitude of increase in demand is higher, then the force to pull the prices up will win. As a result, the prices will increase. If the magnitude of supply is higher than the magnitude of demand, then the downward pressure on prices will win. As a result, the prices are going to decrease. These are the main key takeaways for supply and demand. I encourage you to read the PDF file, the Word file as well. And also, if you have the book, start reading it. If you don't have it, please do a catch-up when you receive the book. That's pretty much it for today, and I will talk to you in our next recording for week 3.